The penthouse suite overlooked the glittering cityscape, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Manhattan like an expensive painting. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over clusters of executives in tailored suits, their laughter carefully measured, their networking deliberate. Waiters glided through the crowd with trays of champagne and canapés, invisible yet essential. Victoria Hastings stood near the bar, holding court with 3 senior vice presidents from competing firms. Her emerald dress matched her ambition, bold, expensive, impossible to ignore. She'd spent 5 years climbing to VP of Business Development, and tonight's charity gala was her stage. "There you are," she called out, her voice carrying that particular blend of affection and condescension she'd perfected. She beckoned to the man who'd just entered, dressed in a simple but well-cut navy suit. No designer label visible, no flashy watch, no peacock display of wealth. He approached with quiet steps, a slight smile on his face. Something in his eyes suggested he was both present and somewhere else entirely, observing rather than participating. "Everyone, this is Daniel," Victoria announced, slipping her arm through his with practiced ease. "My boyfriend. He's still figuring things out career-wise. Trying to find his passion, aren't you, darling?" The words landed like a stone in still water. The ripples of silence spread outward from their small circle, touching nearby conversations, pulling attention their way. Executives who'd been mid-sentence trailed off. A woman holding a champagne flute paused with it halfway to her lips. Daniel's expression didn't change. The smile remained, perhaps deepening slightly at the corners. He met Victoria's eyes with something that might have been amusement or might have been resignation. "Something like that," he said quietly. Victoria continued, oblivious or uncaring to the shift in atmosphere. "He's been exploring different things. Consulting, freelancing. Very entrepreneurial spirit, you know. Still trying to find where he fits in." She squeezed his arm. "But that's fine. Not everyone can be a corporate shark like us, right?" One of the vice presidents, Harrison Webb from Meridian Capital, cleared his throat uncomfortably. He'd been about to speak but seemed to reconsider. His eyes moved from Victoria to Daniel with sudden, sharp interest. "If you'll excuse me," Daniel said, his voice carrying the same quiet quality it had held throughout. "I should make a phone call." He gently extracted his arm from Victoria's grip, nodded politely to the group, and walked toward the exit with unhurried steps. No drama, no confrontation, no wounded pride on display. Just a man leaving a party slightly earlier than planned. Victoria watched him go with a small frown, then shrugged and turned back to her audience. Where were we? Oh yes, the merger discussion. But the conversations around them had changed. Phones were being discreetly checked. Glances were being exchanged. And in the wake of Daniel's departure, the careful architecture of the evening's networking had developed a crack. Monday morning arrived with the weight of unfinished business. Victoria sat in the executive conference room, her 4th coffee of the morning cooling in front of her. Around the polished mahogany table sat the company's leadership. CEO Patricia Fitzgerald, CFO Raymond Torres, and the other senior vice presidents. The mood was tense. "Let's address the elephant in the room," Patricia said. Her silver hair pulled back severely, her expression unreadable. "The Hawthorne deal. Where do we stand?" Raymond shifted in his seat. "We're still waiting on confirmation from the primary investor. Without that commitment, the entire acquisition falls apart. We've been trying to reach them for 3 weeks." Victoria had been the point person on preliminary discussions. It was supposed to be her triumph, the deal that would cement her rise to the C-suite. "I've sent multiple messages. Their representatives keep saying the investor will respond when ready." "Do we even know who this person is?" asked Thomas Briggs, VP of Operations. "We're betting the company's future on someone we've never met." "The intermediaries have impeccable credentials," Victoria defended. "The money is real, the terms are favorable. It's just unorthodox." Patricia's phone buzzed. Then Raymond's. Then 3 others simultaneously. The room filled with the soft chirps and vibrations of arriving messages. Patricia looked at her screen, and her expression shifted from annoyance to something unreadable. "Turn on the financial news," she said quietly. Thomas grabbed the remote, and the wall-mounted screen flickered to life. A financial analyst was mid-sentence. Confirmation that the mysterious investor behind Hawthorne Capital's recent expansion is actually Daniel Ashworth, the 34-year-old founder of Ashworth Holdings. Despite maintaining an almost invisible public profile, Ashworth has orchestrated 7 major deals in the past 2 years alone. Victoria's coffee cup slipped from her fingers, splashing across the table. She didn't notice. The analyst continued. Ashworth's strategy of working through intermediaries and avoiding publicity has made him a ghost in the financial world. Sources say he prefers substance over spectacle, often conducting business without ever meeting clients face-to-face. Ashworth, Patricia repeated slowly, looking directly at Victoria. Daniel Ashworth. Why does that name sound familiar? Victoria's face had drained of color. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. Raymond was already typing furiously on his tablet. Oh my God. He was at the charity gala Saturday night. I saw the guest list. He donated $100,000. Anonymous donation, but the organizers knew. I met him, Thomas said suddenly. Briefly. Very briefly. He was leaving when I arrived. Seemed nice enough. Quiet. Patricia's eyes hadn't left Victoria. Victoria. Did you know Daniel Ashworth? The question hung in the air like an executioner's blade. Victoria's voice came out strangled. We've been seeing each other. For 8 months. I didn't, he never said. The room erupted in whispers. Raymond pulled up photos on his tablet. Security footage from the gala showing Daniel in his simple navy suit, standing beside Victoria in her emerald dress. Harrison Webb from Meridian Capital had sent Patricia a text that morning. She read it aloud now. Thought you should know. Your VP publicly introduced Daniel Ashworth as her unemployed boyfriend who was still figuring things out at Saturday's gala. He left shortly after. No reaction, very gracious. But everyone heard. Just FYI. The silence that followed was suffocating. He never corrected anyone, Victoria whispered. He just left. The week that followed moved with the inexorable quality of a nightmare from which Victoria couldn't wake. The story spread through New York's financial circles with the speed and thoroughness of a virus, mutating slightly with each retelling, but maintaining its essential, mortifying core. Victoria had introduced one of the most influential investors in New York as her unemployed boyfriend who was still figuring things out. At Starbucks on Tuesday morning, she overheard 2 junior analysts from a competing firm. Did you hear about the Hastings thing? Can you imagine? The guy's sitting on $500 million in silent deals, and she's patronizing him about finding his passion. Wednesday's industry newsletter featured a blind item that was anything but blind. Which VP at a major firm might want to Google her significant other before introducing him at networking events? By Thursday, the jokes had evolved into memes. Someone had created a fake LinkedIn post. Passion found. Status. No longer figuring it out. Investment portfolio solid. Victoria stopped going to her usual lunch spots. The pitying looks were worse than the smirks. She'd become a cautionary tale. A punchline. A story people would tell at happy hours for months to come. In the office, colleagues treated her with careful politeness that felt like walking on glass. Patricia called her in Friday afternoon. The Hawthorne deal is dead, the CEO said without preamble. Ashworth's representatives contacted us yesterday. They're withdrawing interest. Politely. Professionally. But definitively. Victoria felt the floor tilt beneath her. Did they say why? They said Mr. Ashworth has decided to pursue other opportunities. Nothing personal. Business decision. Patricia's expression was iron. Of course, we both know that's corporate speak. You embarrassed him publicly. Why would he want to work with us? I didn't know, Victoria said, hating how small her voice sounded. He never told me what he did. He was so private. He'd changed the subject when I asked about work. I thought. I assumed. You assumed, Patricia repeated. You assumed and you broadcast those assumptions to a room full of industry leaders. You turned your relationship into public theater without his consent. It wasn't malicious. I was introducing him. Making conversation. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Victoria, Do you know why Daniel Ashworth is successful? I've done research this week. The man has orchestrated deals worth over $2 billion in 5 years, and until Saturday night, most people in this industry didn't know his face. He operates on trust, discretion, and substance. Everything you violated. Victoria's hands twisted in her lap. Can I apologize? Can I reach out? You can do whatever you think is appropriate, Patricia said carefully. But professionally, I need you to understand something. We've lost the Hawthorne deal. The board is looking for answers. Your position here is precarious. That evening, Victoria sat in her apartment staring at her phone. Daniel's number was still in her contacts. They hadn't spoken since Saturday night. He'd sent a single text Sunday morning. I hope you had a good rest of your evening. Nothing accusatory. Nothing angry. Just distant courtesy. She tried calling twice. Both times, it went to voicemail. She hadn't left messages. The following week, Victoria learned that humiliation had layers. Just when she thought she'd reached the bottom, another level revealed itself. The board meeting on Tuesday was brutal. Patricia delivered the news with clinical precision. The Hawthorne acquisition had been their best chance at expanding into the Asian markets. Without it, they were looking at stagnation, possible downsizing, and diminished quarterly projections. We need alternatives, said board member Constance Park. What about the Meridian Consortium? Raymond shook his head. Harrison Webb's group has partnered with another firm. They've got their own investor now. Who? Patricia asked, though Victoria could hear in her tone that she already knew. Ashworth Holdings. It was announced this morning. The room didn't explode. It didn't need to. The quiet was condemnation enough. Every eye eventually found its way to Victoria. She'd drafted 7 apology messages to Daniel and deleted them all. Each one felt either too formal or too familiar, too apologetic or not apologetic enough. How did you say sorry for publicly diminishing someone's worth, while simultaneously revealing you'd never bothered to truly see them? Her assistant knocked softly Wednesday morning. Ms. Hastings? There's someone from Ashworth Holdings downstairs. They're asking to see you. Victoria's heart stopped. Daniel? No, ma'am. A representative. Julia Brennan. Julia Brennan was 50, impeccably dressed, and carried herself with the confidence of someone who handled billion-dollar transactions before breakfast. She sat in Victoria's office and placed a folder on the desk. Ms. Hastings, I'm here on behalf of Mr. Ashworth. This is a courtesy visit, not a negotiation. Victoria nodded, her throat tight. Mr. Ashworth wanted you to understand his decision regarding the Hawthorne deal. It wasn't punitive. He's not interested in revenge or making a point. He simply concluded that your firm might not be the right cultural fit for his investment philosophy. Cultural fit, Victoria repeated hollowly. Mr. Ashworth values discretion, mutual respect, and substance over spectacle. These aren't just business principles for him. They're how he lives his life. When he enters into professional partnerships, he needs to trust that these values are shared. The message was clear. Victoria had demonstrated the opposite of everything Daniel valued. Can I speak with him? Victoria asked. Please. I need to apologize. Julia's expression softened slightly. Ms. Hastings, between you and me? He's not angry. He was never angry. He was disappointed, which is somehow worse, isn't it? After Julia left, Victoria sat in her office as afternoon faded into evening. Her computer screen showed Daniel's last social media post, from 8 months ago, before they'd met. It was a quote. We judge ourselves by our intentions and others by their actions. Perhaps we should reverse that occasionally. She finally picked up her phone and typed a message. Not an apology, not yet. Just a simple question. Did you know all along how I saw you? The response came 20 minutes later. Yes. Why didn't you correct me? I wanted to see if you'd ever ask. If curiosity about who I actually was would eventually outweigh your assumptions about who you needed me to be. Victoria read those words 3 times, each one landing heavier than the last. The call came on a Friday evening, 3 weeks after the gala. Victoria had been sitting in her apartment, surrounded by moving boxes. Patricia had been merciful in the end, resignation instead of termination, a recommendation letter that was professionally adequate if not effusive. Daniel's name appeared on her screen. Her hands shook as she answered. Hello. Hello, Victoria. His voice was the same, quiet, measured, kind. It made her chest ache. I heard about your resignation. I wanted to reach out. You didn't need to. She forced steadiness into her voice. I know you're not obligated to care about my career implosion. It's not about obligation. She closed her eyes. Daniel, I'm so sorry. I've tried to write this apology 100 times. Nothing captures how deeply I regret what I said, how I treated you. You deserved better. You deserved someone who actually saw you. I know you're sorry. I was so focused on my own ambitions, my own image, that I turned you into a supporting character in my narrative. I didn't ask about your work, because I'd already decided it wasn't important. I introduced you that way because some part of me wanted to feel superior, successful, further along. The words came faster now, pressured by weeks of self-examination. The worst part is you gave me so many chances to really see you, and I chose not to. She heard him breathing on the other end of the line. I don't want your forgiveness, she continued. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I did. Not just the public embarrassment, though that was awful, but the deeper betrayal. I claimed to care about you while never bothering to know you. Victoria, he said gently, I'm not calling to make you feel worse. Then why did you call? Because I wanted you to know that I don't see you as a villain. You made a mistake. A public, consequential mistake, but still a mistake. You're not defined by your worst moment. She felt tears on her cheeks. How can you be kind about this? I humiliated you. I cost you nothing, but I could have. I made assumptions and broadcast them to everyone who mattered in your industry. You did, he agreed. And it was hurtful. But I've been thinking about why it hurt. It wasn't the public aspect. I've been underestimated before. That's nothing new. It hurt because it came from someone I'd trusted with private parts of myself. When you reduced me to still figuring things out, you weren't just wrong about my career. You revealed you'd never been curious about who I actually was beneath the surface you'd constructed. I know, she whispered. I see that now. The thing is, I don't think you're uniquely terrible. I think you got caught up in a common trap, valuing people based on their utility to your ambitions rather than their inherent worth. The financial world rewards that mindset, but it makes for hollow relationships. Is that why you work behind the scenes? Stay private. Partly. I watched my father build an empire while destroying every relationship he had. Success measured only in spreadsheets and status. When he died, the funeral was full of business associates and empty of friends. I decided early I wanted a different kind of wealth. Victoria sat with that, understanding blooming. That's why you didn't correct me. You wanted to see if I valued you, or just what you could provide. I wanted to see if curiosity would eventually outweigh assumption. If who I was would ever matter more than who you needed me to be. I failed that test completely. You did. But Victoria, I didn't call to lecture you. I called because I believe people can learn. You've lost your position, faced public embarrassment, and from what I hear, you've been doing real self-reflection. That's not nothing. It doesn't undo what I did. No. But it might inform what you do next. The measure of character isn't perfection, it's what you do after failure. Do you become bitter? Defensive? Or do you actually transform? She absorbed his words, feeling something shift. What you're doing right now, this call, this kindness, is the greatest comeback, isn't it? You're proving you're bigger than the hurt I caused. I'm proving that dignity doesn't require humiliation of others. Real strength is responding to smallness with largeness. You tried to diminish me publicly. I could destroy what's left of your reputation with a single statement to the press. But what would that gain except making someone else's burden heavier? Most people would want revenge. Most people are trapped in cycles that diminish everyone. Someone hurts them, they hurt back, the pain multiplies. I'd rather break the cycle. Victoria felt something crack open in her chest. Not breaking, but opening. Thank you, she said. For this. for seeing me as capable of growth even after I proved I wasn't seeing you at all. Where will you go now? Smaller firm. Lower position. Hopefully somewhere I can remember that every person has depth I haven't bothered to discover yet. That success without substance is just expensive emptiness. That sounds like a good start. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Daniel? That night at the gala. Why did you come? You never liked those events. She heard the smile in his voice. You asked me to. And despite everything, I cared about you. I wanted to support something that mattered to you, even if that world wasn't mine. After they said goodbye, Victoria sat with her phone in her hand, watching the city lights blur through her tears. She'd lost her position, her reputation, and a relationship with someone whose worth she'd failed to recognize. But she'd gained something harder to quantify. The understanding that the greatest triumph isn't crushing those who've wronged you. It's meeting their smallness with your own largeness. That dignity, freely given when it could have been weaponized, would stay with her longer than any career victory ever had. Outside her window, the city continued its endless churn of ambition and achievement. But Victoria was finally learning to measure success differently. Not in titles or recognition, but in depth of character, authenticity of connection, and the courage to value substance over spectacle. It was, she realized, what Daniel had been trying to teach her all along.